Thank you for watching today. We have a very interesting interview with Faith and Jim Kuman, who are building a net zero apartment on West 37th Street in Minneapolis, and it is one of a kind. Welcome, or thank you for letting me come to you with our next gen builder here. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the concept of the building. Where did it come from? Out of the air, or tell us a little bit about how you put the original idea together.
Yeah, well, we're standing right here actually in the middle of a lot that was empty for more than 10 years in our neighborhood. So the other unusual thing about who we are as a development company, as Heirloom Properties, is that we live right here in the neighborhood which we're building. And so we walked past this empty lot for the better portion of 10 years on the way to the cafe next door, Butter Bakery. And by knowing your neighborhood, by being a part of that neighborhood, you're automatically aware of what's happening, what we need. And so as the chair of the Kingfield Neighborhood Development Committee for the better part of a decade now, we got various applications, people who came who were trying to purchase this property from the owner, which was the building next door. And that owner was an affordable housing developer, but they didn't have the right type of financing to either do single family houses or larger multifamily. This was kind of in between. And so other smaller CDCs tried to purchase the property unsuccessfully because they couldn't find the financing to do townhomes. And so after the second or third time that happened, we said, hey, this is not working out. It's owned by a developer. Two other developers tried to find something to do with the site, and nothing was happening. And the site had been vacant for 10 years, and we needed more housing in our neighborhood. And so we said, well, maybe a different model is necessary.
Yeah. I think that's a really interesting point, because the public doesn't understand how building works. And so they just go, well, why don't we put more here? Why don't they build more of this? Why don't they build more of that?
Right.
And it's a complicated process, maybe a couple of years before you even start with the foundation.
Right.
So how did you get the property, and what happened then?
Yeah, well, a combination of our approach, which is more of a private sector approach, right? A typical financing structure with an investor and a bank. We have a little bit more invested in this project than a typical developer might. And so we needed a little bit less from an outside investor. That was helpful, but also our connections and our relationships. So Faith, also working in the affordable nonprofit housing industry, had relationships, which led to how we were able to actually start the conversation about the property. So you want to talk a little bit about how that happened?
Sure. Yeah, that's critical. People have no idea how that happens.
So, as Jim said, he had, been training people doing small scale development for a number of years. And, one day on a bike ride on the way home, he said, well, all these development proposals for this lot just aren't coming together. What if we did something?
And you said?
I said, you're crazy.
Yeah.
But okay, let's keep talking.
Yeah.
And so we looked at a 12-plex being, something that would fill the lot, with more density than 4 townhomes, but also just be much more affordable to build on a cost per unit basis, because townhomes come in, frankly, quite high, and which is why they're very challenging to finance with affordable housing funds. It's a big chunk to bite off, and a little bit more complication than a single family house that can be built by a wider variety of folks. And so, on the affordable housing side, it's tough building townhomes. It's really tough.
I want to hit on that point, is there are a lot of builders, and people don't know the difference between builders and who can do what, but you had a specific vision for this building. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, we were able to engage with the owner of the property because of a relationship that she had, folks having previously worked together. And so we had basically had coffee with the gentleman who was saying, we have the same problem. We don't know what to do with the property either. And so as we start looking at, what are the different types of housing that could go here and how would we finance that? And so it became very clear that the affordable housing sort of realm didn't have anything to offer. There was no way to finance those things. However, there were a number of things that Faith did in her day job work that were possible to both work on helps fund the sustainability pieces as well as some of the other innovative parts of this project. And so those include grants and rebates from utility companies, the city, the county, and some tax credits from the federal government. That all those things coming together.
The wife with benefits.
Yeah, exactly. All those thought processes, like, okay, how do we take that thought process that we were aware of from the nonprofit world and marry that to a for-profit type of financing that would be more traditional, so that we could get the benefits from these programs, which we're trying to encourage more sustainable buildings. We're trying to encourage these types of projects, but frankly, not many of them were going real far, right? They were panning out dollars, but the projects could have gone farther. And so we said, okay, we're going to need to be able to pay for the first costs of some of these more expensive pieces of equipment that we'll see here today. And if you're not looking at a long-term thought process like we are, we're going to be long-term owners of this building, you think differently. If you're going to be up and out in 5 to 7 years, which is a typical thing for many multifamily development projects, the larger, the shorter it is, they're probably going to hold on to it. That we need to be able to look at this differently. And so we have, because of that longer range look, we could both structure the capital that went to finance this project as well as look at our returns personally. So in a way, some of the money that we put into the project and much of the time that turns into money was a part of the ability to do this a little bit differently, because a lot of research and development had to happen for this scale of building and for the technologies that we were trying to use, which are actually more about single family scale technologies, actually, because most of the larger buildings, this building wasn't big enough for big building technologies, actually. So most of the things we're using here and are individualized by unit are really things you could put in your house.
Single family but multiplied.
Correct, exactly, because we tried to have a ventilation system that was centralized, and the smallest piece of equipment we could find that would do that job effectively was 2 to 3 times too large for the function we needed.
Wow.
And so you can imagine many more times the cost as well. So it was a very efficient piece of equipment, but it delivered way too much, and it was too costly for our project.
Well, I'm sure the neighborhood is thrilled to have you. And this becomes a game changer in this neighborhood.
Yeah, I think that this neighborhood is primed for the type of amenities that we were providing. We actually did a little bit of demographics work just to see. A friend of ours had access to the database that people do this kind of stuff in, and so about half of the neighborhood is in a demographic that is the Whole Foods shopping, co-op shopping, eco-family, that kind of demographic.
72% millennials want to be seen as eco-friendly.
Yeah, and so that is who this neighborhood is, but yet the multifamily developments, there's almost 400 units of apartments that are going in within a 6-block radius of where we stand, yet none of them are really doing that. And so that was the niche. That was the niche that we decided we wanted to inhabit, provide those types of amenities that weren't being provided. But also, we also thought about, because we're urbanists at our core, a building that fit into its place. So we wanted to have high performance. One of the problems with many high performance buildings is that they look weird. They look spaceshipy. They kind of look like they landed, right? And they're all bent to maximize everything. Or they're not in a box, right? And so sometimes those buildings, they have great aesthetics, right? But then they function poorly. And we went through lots of buildings in college for that. You're taught about the design of the buildings, and you go visit them, you talk to people who maintain them or do something, and they're like, oh God, this building leaks, and it does this, it does that. And so we wanted a building that looked the part of being in this neighborhood of 100-year-old multifamily structures made out of brick. Right.
When I first saw the photo, I went, oh, they retrofitted
an old building. Yeah, that's about 50% of the initial reaction we see. We sponsor the farmers market, and so we've just been out and people have seen pictures and images of the building, and that's the first question they ask: is this a rehab or is this new construction? Right? If you can't tell, right, you did something right to fit in. Right. You fit in, and just the proportion of the windows, the proportion of the building. There's plenty of on-street parking here. There's not enough space to park cars and still have any space left for housing. It's a 7,000 square foot site. It's about a lot and a half wide. A typical Minneapolis lot. It's actually shorter than a typical Minneapolis lot. And so all those things create a unique building to be able to,
because and a lot of challenges.
And a lot of challenges to be able to fit in. Yeah. Together. Yeah. Yeah, so fitting everything on the site and then fitting the technologies in and making it all look right and function correctly. Yep, that's then the balance of this project. And we had to provide a lot of additional support and ability to direction basically to our consultants and to the people who worked on this project and contractors, because there's no one doing this, right? And so even something as simple as mineral wool on your walls, like we're seeing all around us here, some of this is sound insulation.
It looks like inside the pyramid.
Yeah, so some of this is sound insulation, and on the other side of the wall over here, it's actually thermal insulation, but it's the same material and it functions pretty similarly, but most of the time you see fiberglass, you see other cheaper materials that also are more susceptible to mold and moisture, and so we were choosing materials, compacting, yes, absolutely. These are batt insulations that don't shrink and don't sag, and so those types of materials are going to make this building last longer.
Wow, that's a lot of information. And I'm sure a lot of our audience has no idea what you're talking about. But by the time we get done, you will. We're going to do another series on a walkthrough as it is now, once when the sheet rocks up, and we will talk about other aspects of the building. But thank you for watching this one. Don't forget to hit subscribe and come back. Thanks.